We're talking breakout prospects from the 2023 season here on the Call Up. He's Jack McMullen. I'm Aram Layton. The Texas Rangers are world champions. We're not here to talk about that. I was at the game, though, and that was really cool. And that's part of the reason why this Giants top prospect list is slightly delayed. It's been a little bit busy here in Arizona between the Fall League and now going to the World Series game. We are going to talk about a Texas Rangers prospect in this episode, though, so we will take care of a little bit of Rangers conversation. But, Jack, I've kind of thrown a wrench in our schedule because of this week being so chaotic, but we will get back on track with the top tens. The Giants system is almost done. We're almost there. It's a really unique system. Also took a little bit longer because there's multiple players that I have to write up twice because they also pitch and hit. So it's been a little bit crazy. Yeah,
it's all good. I'm excited for the Reggie Crawford and the Bryce Eldridge breakdown because those are two guys that I think so many people have a ton of questions about. And I think that we're okay waiting a weekend. Personal news, I slept until 10:40 this morning because we got done with just baseball show stuff. I went to bed around 2 after the Rangers won the World Series. So it's kind of nice to be done with the post-game record. I will say that.
I got to be honest, yeah.
I feel really well rested right now. I know I'm going to be groggy at about 5 p.m., but it's 2:24 out in the Eastern time zone. But we're going to go to bed at 10, and we're going to come back and get ready for an off-season. It's kind of nice. This is like the start to our off-season programming. And we're just like talking baseball less than 24 hours after the Rangers win it, because like prospect life and baseball life really never ends. And now we get into the free agency thing. A lot of good content coming on the just baseball side and the call-up side.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the off seasons where we have a little bit more creative freedom because there's not as much changing there. You don't have the fluidity of the season and things to keep up with. And from a minor league perspective, especially because now we can look back at the 2023 season and look forward at the 2024 season. Same thing on the Just Baseball show. I will say it is really nice to just not be recording at 2 a.m. and have to try to turn that around. And then the next morning, try to keep up on these sides of things. So I'm really excited for the kind of content plan that we have on the call-up side. Of course, just kind of reminding you, it'll be the team top 10s, top 15s really, and farm system breakdowns every single week. A fun episode kind of mixed in with that every week as well, whether it's something like this, recapping the top, breakout seasons or whatever it may be. And then we will probably be interviewing a lot of different prospects, a lot of stuff lined up from the AFL that we're going to have going probably at the end of it. I had kind of that back and forth of, so I want some shorter form conversations that we put together, into one episode where we have 3 or 4 guys, or get a couple of these guys out here to come on for 45 minutes and talk about their season. I thought there were several guys that their season's just been so fascinating that I'd love to have them sit down and talk. I can promise you that they'll be very fun interviews. Paulie, we've got locked in finally after the season. That poor guy's been in like 3 different time zones. He's climbed 4 levels, basically. He's been all over the map. I saw him. I could just see how exhausted he is. I was like, yo, let's do this after the season. That said, he hit a bomb. Our guy Will Cohen got an unbelievable video, Padres prospect. We're going to talk about him in this episode, coincidentally, so I'll save that. But that was a really fun conversation, just to be able to kind of dive into what he's done, and I'm looking forward to bringing him on to the show for a full 45. And I think people are really going to like him.
The other nice thing about the offseason is these guys are kind of itching to talk baseball because they step away from it they don't step away from it. They're always doing it, but they step away from a field and a game environment for about 150 days. And that's tough when you do it every day for 6 months, 7 months. So, Paulie, I know that you're trying to get something with Victor Scott on the schedule, which is very exciting. Yeah. And I know from my in-person conversations with Justin Henry Malloy with the Tigers and Quinn Priester with the Pirates, they want to come on and do a full 45 and kind of a breakdown and just shoot the shit for a little bit this offseason. That's just scraping the surface of what we're going to be doing. And this is the time where you can really eat and get people in a relaxed environment. So the off season, I'd argue the content's more fun during the off season. So sure. I'm very excited to kind of get this thing going on the player front too. And Paulie's a great start because I watched that video you texted. I like took Twitter off my phone for a minute. and you texted me and was like, "You need to go watch the Twitter video that I
And
put out."
I don't do that often either. I'll just send you
Never.
the video.
And I was like, all right, damn it, time to go on the iPad and open up X, the Elon machine. And I was like, wow, I'm glad that Aram told me that it was mandatory that I go watch that Paulie home run video, because that thing was tagged.
Oh yeah. And you can't see in the video, but it was a left on left heater. And that swing in itself is exactly why he's one of the breakout hitters that we're going to talk about here. So we're going to go through about 4 or 5 hitters, maybe a 6, depending on, and then we'll talk about some pitchers too. There's a lot of guys that could have qualified for this. We thought about putting some first rounders on that and maybe didn't have the same level of prospect intrigue that they have now, but we wanted to really go with the players that were not on any radars going into the season, or just were mostly overlooked by the industry and fans alike. And I think Paulie fits that exact mold, right? Because Paulie, we talked about him in that Padres farm system breakdown, but this is a guy that was a late bloomer in college, had a solid season to go into the draft, but I don't think it was anything crazy. He didn't light the world on fire. It was a similar story to Nathan Martorella, but I thought Martorella kind of balled out a little bit more at Cal. They saw something here with Paulie where they just knew he was just scraping the surface of what he's capable of offensively. And I've said it with the Padres, they do a really good job of identifying swings that are just going to play. And if you have baseline athleticism across the board elsewhere and a good approach, like, they can put that together into a good ball player. Martorella was a player that didn't have a sexy prospect profile, but they liked the swing. Graham Paulie, same thing. And Paulie, to be honest, it's one of the best swings I've seen out here, and one of the more advanced swings you're going to see in the minor leagues. And this specific stroke that we're talking about here, that I think we're going to, in post-production for those watching on YouTube, we'll overlay that video. If you're listening on audio, go check out on my Twitter. It's not that far down, maybe like 1 or 2 videos down. But the thing that stands out to me is this is a left on left heater running in on his hands. It's on the inside black. And he is not only able to get to it, he turns it around for a pull side homer. And that's just what Graham Paulie has been able to do all year. It's a slow early load. He sees the ball early. He makes great swing decisions, and he seems to always put himself in position to make a powerful swing and drive the ball in the air with some authority. And you see that, Jack, through his numbers this year, where he hit for average, but he also slugged a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that jumps out to me, and the thing that I think makes Paulie a true breakout in every sense of the word, is this guy put up a 931 OPS this year between low A, high A, and double A. That 931 clip is the best OPS he's had at any stop after high school, aside from 26 games with the Alpharetta Aviators in the Sun Belt Collegiate Summer League. I know my college summer leagues. I know the Cape, the Northwoods, the NECBL, the Alaskan. I've never heard of the Sun Belt League. And the fact that Paulie put up a better OPS this year, climbing to double A, than he did on the Cape in an NA game sample, in college, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But this guy clearly made some tangible changes.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic comparison there, where you can go all the way back to early college.
It's like,
and then,
this dude as a sophomore at Duke had a 685 OPS, and now he's OPS 931 in high A and double.
It's funny. So he was in the on deck circle. And the cool thing about the fall league is you can kind of like slide right behind, and be in the first row behind home. So he obviously played with a couple of my buddies at Duke. So I snapped a picture to my buddy, Mike Rothenberg, who we're going to get on the show, one of the smartest baseball minds, especially with pitching, as he's a catcher. And just, oh my gosh, I'm excited to get him on here and pick his brain. But I sent him a picture. The first thing Roth said was, man, he's really filled out. And that seems to be the story with Paulie, is he put on a lot of weight, good weight, his junior year at Duke. And then I think finally as a pro, as he started to really break out that junior year, it still had a nice year. It wasn't nearly as good as this year, which is insane to your point, across multiple levels all the way up to double A. He blended that advanced swing and how do I leverage my new strength and balance the two. And he's done exactly that. There is a really interesting stat that I think is fun from this season that also highlights why Paulie is an absolute breakout. And I think also doing it across multiple levels really solidifies the breakout too. It's one thing to be, oh, college guy figures it out and he hits in low A and high A. Like, yeah, it's impressive, but to do it also in double A, now the fall league, is super impressive. This year, prospects with at least 20 home runs, 20 doubles, 20 stolen bases, and a K rate below 25%. Sounds like a lot of specific stats, but like, honestly, it's just hitting for power, also hitting enough where you fill in with doubles, stealing 20 bags, and not punching out a lot. Jackson Chourio, Jordan Lawler, Ceddanne Rafaela, Ronnie Mauricio, Graham Pauley, Joey Loperfido, Troy Johnston, Ryan Bliss, and then the two kind of like random surprises are Tyler Fitzgerald and Aaron Polensky. But for the most part, that's a ridiculous group to be a part of.
Man, Tyler Fitzgerald got to the big leagues this year.
That is true.
So
that is true.
Can't call him a rando. He's a big leaguer. So is Wade Meckler. Yeah, I mean, whenever you can, regardless of query, whenever you can query someone into a clump of like some of the top prospects in baseball, you know they did something good. Like, outlier or not, chances are the outliers still had a fantastic year and one that's going to make them sleep incredibly soundly. Paulie, I think, is less of an outlier and more of a fringe top 100 guy than a lot of people would expect.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing I'll say, defense actually looks good at third.
Really?
The interesting thing is they're trying to get him some reps in left, because I think he might have to play some left or some outfield for the Padres, who are broke, by the way. And I know it's not really, but they got a bridge loan, and I just think it's crazy that a team that stopped in attendance and good TV ratings needs to get a bridge loan to make player payroll. That said, they are going to trim some salary, and Graham Pauley's probably going to be. I think there's a chance he could play some outfield or play some anywhere for them at some point this coming year, because I think they're going to shed, and I think they're going to move some guys, and there's a reason why they're trying to get Paulie some experience in the outfield, despite him never having played it before, not even at the collegiate level, not even in the Sun Belt League that you just talked about.
He was an aviator in Alpharetta, Georgia, northern suburb of Atlanta. I had some fun with the Padres going broke thing on the Just Baseball show last night. It was 2 a.m., but there were a couple of asides, and I saw AJ Preller with one of like the big gulp cups and was asking me for $1 bill. It was kind of crazy. It was tough.
That is tough. I mean, that's what happens when you just spend and just don't even like think twice.
I mean,
about it. But,
hey, shit, I need $50 million.
It's just a little bridge loan. But seriously though, like, Paulie is a guy that I do think can help them this year. Same with Jacob Marcy, who you could probably also say is a borderline breakout guy in this conversation as well. So we'll give him a little honorable mention love.
Yeah.
Next up, another guy that we've had on the show and we saw in the fall league, it's Justice Bigbie of the Detroit Tigers. And I feel like every time we're going to talk about a player, I'll be like, oh, this was the craziest breakout. But aside from maybe one other guy we're going to talk about, I don't know, man. It's tough. This is up there, though. I think this is one of the more insane breakouts. I think you got to combine what they actually did in terms of the statistics, but then also where they were at coming into the year. And I feel like Bigbie, I mean, he had as good of a year as anybody in minor league baseball, period. And I don't think anybody was really paying attention to him going into this year.
No one knew who he was. And I think that's kind of a different case than Kerry Carpenter, who we want to, kind of equate Justice Bigbie to. Kerry Carpenter was undoubtedly the breakout of the year in 2022. If Carpenter was undoubtedly the breakout of the year in 22, Bigbie has to undoubtedly be the breakout of the year in 23. Same round, 19th round. Carpenter came from Virginia Tech. Gavin Cross was a top 10 pick. They consistently have players that are first-round caliber talents, and it's the ACC. You could argue that's the second or third best conference in college baseball. Justice Bigbie was a 19th round pick out of Western Carolina.
Yeah.
Who the hell was Justice Bigbie?
Yeah.
And now we're like, yeah, he's knocking on the door. He probably factors into the 2024 plans for Detroit.
Which
is a breakout.
Awesome. It's so awesome. And that's why I love the fluidity of this sport, and I love the minor leagues, because Justice Bigbie had his, what was it, a 690 OPS in 696 OPS in low A as a 23-year-old out of college. his first, pro season, really. That's a guy that you are not counting on having a 942 OPS against high A, double A, and triple A competition. It's just, and now he's a piece of potentially your future. Like, that's what's so cool about the minor leagues, man. It's so fluid.
This guy proves that baseball is truly a meritocracy. And that's what I love about this. You could argue sports in general are a meritocracy, and I agree, but the AAU circuit is tough. College basketball, thankfully, the mid-major programs and the low-major programs give you an opportunity to kind of showcase yourself. And if you are good enough, you run to the Dame Lillard thing where, like, hey, you go to Weber State, where is that? But you could still make it. Baseball truly is the meritocracy. There are a ton of guys that nobody in baseball circles has ever heard of that get a shot. And what you do with that shot determines how far you go in this thing. Yeah. Bigby, if he had an 800 OPS, he could be blocked. He could have spent the entire year in high A. He didn't have an 800 OPS. He had a 950. He was like amazing. If you're amazing, you climb in this game. And that Justice Bigby is what ropes me back into loving this game.
I'm with you. And also great guy. If you haven't heard that interview, go check out our conversation with Justice Bigby from maybe a month or two ago. Really cool story. I mean, one of the questions I had to ask him, we're talking about summer collegiate leagues, man. This guy did 3 straight years in the Northwoods. And just so people know, like, the Northwoods is probably the second most challenging in terms of competition when it comes to summer collegiate leagues, but it is the number one most rigorous. Yes. Because you got to travel more than anywhere else. It's a really aggressive schedule, and there's generally more games. He played one summer where he had more games in Madison in the Northwoods League than he had in his collegiate season. He played 53 games at Western Carolina. Then that summer played 68 games for Madison. You don't hear of college guys playing 121 games in a season. I mean, that's insane. So I think that really set him up well to be able to handle the endurance of a season and all that good stuff. But it also is a testament to how much this guy likes baseball and how much he lives for it, because I mean, most people get burnt out, and he didn't even get close to burnt out. He actually matched what he did in his regular season in Madison, and those 68 games put up a 944 OPS. But what was interesting is kind of almost takes a small step back in 16 games, didn't get a chance to get going in the shortened 2020 season, and then had a really nice senior year. But no doubt, one of the most impressive breakouts. Final slash line on the year. You didn't read it, the numbers overall yet, right? 343, 405, 537 slash line. That's a 942 OPS. He had 25 doubles, 19 homers. I mean, that is really good stuff. So pumped on Justice Bigby, and definitely going to be a guy who I think gets a little bit of an opportunity next year for the big league club in Detroit. Next, we got 2 Cincinnati Reds here. So we'll go with the 2 Reds together, but we'll start with, I think, the player that maybe has a little bit more upside, Blake Dunn. What a year for this guy. Blake Dunn, another like Central America in terms of like just mid-major type of school, right? Was he a Western Michigan guy?
Yeah, he was a Bronco in Kalamazoo.
Blake Mitchell had a crazy year. And I got a chance to see this guy on the Cape back when I was out there. And did I say Blake Mitchell? Blake Dunn. I got a chance to see him out there. He was definitely athletic. And you could see how well he could move. You could see stocky but strong guy. But, man, I never thought he had this in the tank. It's absolutely insane what he's been able to put together this year. And it was a 15th round pick by the Reds, coming off of last year where he did have a good year last year. So it is worth noting this isn't a guy that totally came out of nowhere. In 37 games between rookie ball and low A, he did produce an 878 OPS. But to do what he did in high A and double A, and from a power, from a speed, from an everything perspective was remarkable. We'll get into the numbers in a second. But Jack, Blake Dunn, I mean, you were taking the 878 OPS with a grain of salt, right? Because he's a college guy in low A and rookie ball. No way we were expecting him to actually be better. Really have again, similar thing, pretty much the best numbers he's had, except for 1 year in a summer collegiate league, were at double A, the highest level he's ever played at this year. We had a 989 OPS at 332.
Yeah, there was there was no doubting the athleticism, and the stolen bases were there. When he was in the Northwoods in 20, he stole 32 bases in 37 attempts. So we knew that he could do that. Did we know that he could steal 54 bases in 61 attempts? We did not. But the other thing that jumps out, his previous career high in a given season for homers was 5. And he hit 23 this year.
Wow, I actually didn't notice that. Holy crap.
Yeah.
He never hit more than 5.
At any stop. In 2019, he had 5 at Western Michigan, and then he had 2 more in Falmouth. So I guess 7. So you bump it from 7 to 23. He's playing more games, but I mean, who cares? He played 89 games in 2019. He had 7 homers. He played 124. He had 23 homers this year. So the power breakout is what pushes this guy over the top. And the fact that we got a 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050 season is really impressive. And the final slash line, 312, 425, 522.
And the power's for real, Jack. Like he found, and he battled a lot of injuries. He's a football player too. And he
looks like a football. His headshot makes him look like a football player.
Right. He does look like just like a guy that you could just hand the rock off to. He's just running it straight up the middle, but he hits the ball hard. 90th percentile exit velocity of 105 this year. And I mean, this guy hit a home run 112 miles per hour this year. That's legit power. That backs the breakout. So I mean, not that he was playing in any super hitter friendly environments, but sometimes you just have these fluky, outcomes a little bit. I think it's kind of hard to hit 23 home runs by accident. So, but just to add some further context, he hits the ball very hard and has found something there. Destroys lefties too, which is an interesting note. And I think a way that he's going to be able to force his way up to the big leagues and potentially help this Reds team that historically had struggled against lefties, not as much this past year, but against lefties this year, 359, 510, 709 slash line. That's a 1219 OPS with 10 homers. That'll play. You mentioned the speed. The defense is good. He can play all 3 spots. There's another dude that I think with the year that he had will probably start in AAA, but he'll get a chance to help this team out at the big league level. And I think it's part of the reason why they're okay with parting with like a Ciani. There's another guy that's a part of the reason why I think that is the case too. But Dunn was fantastic. And I think he's going to get an opportunity this year.
Yeah, Ciani was DFA'd. He was claimed by the Cardinals, and I think he finished the year with Memphis, but he did get a brief cameo with St. Louis. This is kind of a better version of we have Michael Ciani at home in Dunn and the next guy that we're going to talk about. And, sometimes the home cooked meal is better than the one, you get at the restaurant or through the drive-through. Man, I'm so curious to see how the Reds attack the offseason. When it comes to free agent, like 1-year deals for bats, I have a feeling they may look in the outfield because there's already a young logjam in the infield. I think they need a catcher moving forward. They don't have an answer back there.
I think that's number 1.
Yeah, but in the outfield, like Friedel was awesome. Friedel was a 4.5 win player this year.
Oh yeah.
Is TJ Friedel the everyday center fielder? Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go about implementing Blake Dunn or the next guy that we talk about? I don't know.
He takes the lefties. They didn't like playing all those guys against lefties all the time last year. So
sure, but would you rather they have wild card aspirations? Would you rather trust Blake Dunn in a lefty platoon, or would you go sign a 32-year-old, right-handed bat to a 1-year deal? I'm not sure. We'll see.
And we'll see. And I think it'll be telling on how the Reds want to approach it, regardless if Blake Dunn continues what he did last year, which I think he will. Maybe not at the same exact output, but I think he's going to put up numbers. It's just going to be whether he can do it at the big league level or not. He's going to get to AAA. He's a patient hitter already. He's a 20% chase rate guy. I think he's going to continue to put up good numbers in AAA. And at that point, it's like, okay, if someone goes down or whatever, he's going to get an opportunity. It's just whether he makes anything of it. But yeah, I do think it's probably silly to not have a primary plan and just say, hey, Blake Dunn, you're the guy. You're our platoon guy that's going to take the lefty at bats. Probably not yet. Next is Jacob Hurtubise, which, what was he, 39th round pick by the Reds? Was it 39th?
Maybe there was,
or did he get previously drafted 39th round and then signed as an undrafted free agent in 2020?
He
It's
was a
one or the other.
non-drafted free agent in 20.
Okay.
That's exactly what that was.
Okay. That's always deceptive because you see that was the only time he was drafted, but then he signed a year later for $20K as an undrafted free agent out of Army, which is
out of Army.
wild.
So there was a very weird wrinkle. He was subject to the Noah Song wrinkle, where he would have to go serve before starting his career. Song didn't get a waiver, like an athletic waiver that David Robertson got out of Navy. There was some weird thing when it literally came down to like, hey, the Trump administration did this. Like, it was bizarre. I remember reading about it in 21 in the Midwest League, but I think he got a waiver and Song was a year too early in getting the waiver.
No, I did see something along those lines as well. I know what you're talking about.
So there was a chance that Hurtubise was just going to be out of pro ball for 4 years. He wasn't. He was a speed demon in 21. It was 39 bags and 49 attempts. The speed is still entirely there. In 22, he stole 16 bags in 63 games. We were like, where did it go? But in 119 games, he stole 45 bags in 54 attempts. I didn't expect him to slug 483. I didn't think that was in the tank, but it was apparently in the tank this year. And this was a really incredible year. A 479 OBP is kind of a tough one to fathom.
The slug makes no sense because this is one of the more unique profiles. And just watch this guy hit. So if you watch him hit, you'll realize that the batted ball data, like, you almost have to throw it out the window because he is up there just looking to slap something in play. So he doesn't care if he hits it 20 miles an hour. He can just kind of finesse it over into the left field, shallow left field area. The other side of it, though, is he's a pretty strong guy, right? So every once in a while, he'll smack one, and you're like, whoa, where's that? I mean, this guy's 90th percentile exit velocity was like 98 miles an hour this year, which is, I think that's below Xavier Edwards. But then he'll just snap off a 107. I think he had a home run 107 miles an hour this past year, which it was way higher of a max than anybody else with a 90th percentile exit velocity below 100. So it's interesting. It's like the old Ichiro, right? Like, oh, he has more power in there, but he just doesn't want to use it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of the case here. Like, he could sell out for more power, but then he's not getting on base at a 460 clip because he's one of the most patient hitters in the minor leagues, 14% chase rate. He's really good bat to ball. He doesn't miss changeup specifically, which is really funny. So, like, if you're a righty, you got to get him out with a breaking ball. And even then, he doesn't really swing and miss at them very often. 87% zone contact, 86% zone contact overall. Like, that's going to play. He walked more than he struck out this year. But with his speed, man, he chops balls in the ground. He beats them out. Like, he's just a very unorthodox throwback type player. It might just work. So he kind of defies everything that, we're totally used to. What's funny is I think a big reason why the slug was up too is this guy hit 10 triples. He turned a lot of doubles into triples, and that's going to help the slug, right? A triple is better than a double when it comes to the slug. No one ever really hits enough triples for it to really make that much of a difference. But 10 triples, 7 doubles in double A, and overall in the season, he had 11 doubles in those 10 triples and 7 home runs. I mean, that's really impressive stuff. He's going to walk. He's going to put the ball in play. He's not going to strike out. The question is, how much power does he hit for? But maybe he doesn't have to hit for that much.
No, he has to hit for like a little bit more than 0. Yeah. And it seems like he figured out a way to do that. Another Pauly type quirk. You look at any stop since high school for Jacob Hurtubise, he's never had a higher slugging, regardless of sample size, than he did in 2023. Not at Army, not on the Cape, nothing.
You know what else is crazy? You have 176 games in college, 0 home runs. That's 758 plate appearances with 0 home runs. You can also add his time on the Cape, which he was actually great, and no home runs there either. So you have almost, I think, actually over 800 plate appearances, 0 home runs. But now as a pro, it's been a little bit better, right? You got 1,000 plate appearances, 8 homers, but 7 of those have come in his last 455. I mean, that's enough, especially in Great American Ballpark. So I'm interested to see where this guy fits into. But a fun story and definitely a breakout by any definition.
Yeah.
Next up's a guy I saw walking into his car in the parking lot of the Arizona complex here, and he's definitely as big as advertised. Abimelec Ortiz, the Texas Rangers. That guy's a monster. He's a big dude. Big dude. And he hit like a big dude this year. I think it's just one of those years where it just seems like everything went right for the Rangers, where you have obviously your big league team now winning the World Series, but the farm system as well. I mean, you somehow luck into Wyatt Langford, and then you have certain guys just perform and just really break out and have great years. They cash in on, Sajazi, they cash in on Roby, they hold on to Ortiz. And Ortiz, I mean, with how good their system is otherwise, this is some found money here that I think they got to be pretty excited about. There's a classic swing and miss concerns, but for a 21-year-old, what was it, 34 home runs if you combine the Arizona Fall League this far? I mean, that's
34.
That's big pop in 121 games.
Big time juice, and under 500 plate appearances too. You got 34 homers and you have 108 driven in. The thing that jumped out to me is like, this guy was a 300 hitter. The punch outs were there, but I mean, he hit 294 this year, which is incredible. Last year, 94 games, hit 226.
Yeah.
So not only do you have a 300-point jump in OPS, but you have about a 70-point jump in batting average. And that matters with power guys. Schwarber can circumvent it, but if your guys are hitting at a pretty high clip in the minor leagues, you know that they have enough field to hit to kind of have them prepped to be a 3 true outcome guy in the major leagues.
Yeah.
There's really no, low 200s masher in the big leagues that hit low 200s in the minor leagues. They always hit mid to high 200s.
It's a good point. Like, even when you are looking at some of the guys that you think are like, wow, they must have been 30 hit tool guys. Like,
I'm going to give you Joey Gallo right now. Joey Gallo, career in the minor leagues, hit 253.
Yeah, like that. That's a lot higher than I think a lot of people would think, given what you see at the big league level. So it's important to kind of have that comparatively. And I think that's an important point with Ortiz, because Ortiz at the highest level, his success is probably going to look like 240, 250 with a lot of home runs. But the important thing that he did is leaning into that 3 true outcome profile. And of course, he's not trying to do that, but in terms of one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do if you're going to strike out and be a home run hitter who walks, obviously cut down on the chase, which he did. Try to minimize whiff as much as you can. He did. He cut his in zone whiff and overall whiff by a couple ticks. But I think most importantly, he cuts his ground ball rate down by about 12, 13%. And I think that's why we saw the home run output really jump. Of course, you make more contact, you're going to hit more home runs. And that's what he did this year. But I also think you make more contact in the air, that's also going to help a lot too. His 90th percentile exit velocity also jumped more than 3 miles per hour. So when you have that jumping 3 miles per hour and you're hitting the ball in the air more and you're hitting the ball more frequently and you're not chasing as much, you got the recipe for a breakout. So it pretty much contextualizes it. This was for real. This guy's got a powerful left-handed stroke. Again, there's a chance he might not be able to hit enough. We'll see. But he took as big of a step in the right direction even for him as a human can in 1 year.
Yeah.
Next up, we got, and make sure I'm saying this right, Tyrone Lorenzo. It's Tyrone,
I think
right?
so. I think it's Tyrone. Yeah, Tyrone Lorenzo.
Los Angeles Dodgers. This is the last hitter we're going to talk about. Actually, we got one more hitter real quick after. But second to last hitter. Dodgers do this, man. We know that. We know the Dodgers always have these guys that just kind of come out of nowhere and end up turning into really exciting prospects. And he's probably not far off from potentially lapping Diego Cartaya, if we're talking about the catcher pecking order. If Lorenzo,
not me.
I'm just saying, if he continues on this trajectory, he does a lot of the things that they were hoping Cartaya would do with a lot of the same questions. He whiffs a lot. He hits the ball very hard, and he has been very productive and was very productive this past season. What was it, 25 home runs, Jack, this past
24,
season?
24 and 418 plate appearances.
Yeah, that'll play. You got 24 homers. I mean, kept the strikeout rate under 30%, but walked a ton to hedge that. Guy hits the ball really hard for a player that was in his age 19 season, switch hitter that can get into it from both sides. Just a guy that wasn't really on my radar that much. And it's just impossible to ignore this kind of power as a switch hitting catcher, even with the whiff.
Yeah, man. He was one of those where I think a lot of people were following Josue de Paula, who got his first full taste of full season baseball in Loe Rancho, and Lorenzo is someone that certainly had prospect intrigue coming into this, but elevated this year. And with Cartaya having the year he did, rushing was awesome. Dalton Rushing was great. Rushing, I think, is clearly the top catching prospect in the Dodgers system. And I think the Dodgers probably do end up extending Will Smith very soon. They may start looking at these guys as having a ton of trade capital. And I think if you were to approach the 29 other GMs and said, hey, this is our list of 3 catching prospects, you power rank them 1 through 3, I can absolutely see that some may want Lorenzo a bit more than Cartaya. I think Rushing is a clear-cut number 1, but Lorenzo might be number 2 at this point, considering how much juice this guy does have in the tank at 19 years old.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, Cartaya all of a sudden is 22 now, and it's the clock's ticking. Where's the power? And he hit some home runs this year, but the 90th percentile was 102. Like, and that it's kind of been that way. Like, I don't think he hits the ball as hard as people think he does. And then also, it's just that he hits in the air consistently, which is great. But when you strike out as much as he does, got to be hitting the ball hard. And Lorenzo hits the ball hard. We'll see how the defense progresses and all those things. But I think when you're seeing the power output right now, you got to be pretty excited about that. I do have concerns about the whiff. I think that is something that could ultimately hold him back. But as good of an age 19 season as you could ask for, a lot of momentum heading into next year, and definitely not a guy that I was expecting to hit 25 or almost 25 home runs this season. A guy I was not expecting to steal nearly 100 bases, and if you include the Arizona Fall League, has stolen 100 bases, and like we mentioned, should be on the show sometime next week. Excited for that. Victor Scott II. We just talked about him an episode ago. I was breaking down some of my live looks, and crazy enough, the Cardinals prospect went deep the day I recorded that, and it was funny because if you listen to that episode, I'm talking about how I saw sneaky power, and what stood out to me was a couple foul balls that he hit, even where you could see the bat speed, the way he was able to turn around something middle in and hit it hard. And I'm like, that's not your traditional speed, slap hitting type guy. That's a guy that can surprise you and run into one. Lead off homer right away in the game that I went to yesterday. And it was a blast. It was 107, and it was a line shot that got out quick. This guy's got sneaky power and just enough to be a really good ball player. But that's not why we're talking about him right now. That's why I think he's going to be a good big leaguer. Why we're talking about him is he nearly stole 100 bags, but he also hit for average. And he also just was a good all-around baseball player this year.
Yeah, there's so much more. Like, he's so much more than a one-trick pony, a one-trick stolen base pony. If the power is there, and he is a 15 home run threat, he's top 100 type talent, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was looking at. Like, when I was watching him, I'm like, man, he's right there. Like, he's right there. I'm with you. I mean, especially when you consider what he can do now. I mean, 10 home runs with 10 triples. Like, that's enough when you got everything else going. And he's walking a little bit too.
Yeah. Big time.
I mean, looking at the numbers this year, 303, 369, 425 slash line. That's between high A and double A. And he was better in double. And that was something that, of course, the ball flies a little bit more out there, but it was nice to see that work into his favor and say, okay, hey, a guy with some fringy pop can actually tap into at least average pop in the right environments. I mean, that's great to see. It's hard to hit for power in the Midwest League. He only had 2 home runs in 66 games there. Then 66 games in Springfield in Texas League. He had 7 there. But really just a menace on the base paths. Seeing it up close and personal, just the way that he's able to get these jumps, the leads that he gets, how comfortable he is. It just seems like he's playing the game at a different speed than everybody else, but the game somehow like operating slower for him. It's pretty awesome to see. 14 for 16 already in the fall league, 804 OPS out here. He's just been really damn good. And I think he's right on the fringe of top 100. And I also think that he was one of the more surprising breakouts because another guy, you look at what he did last year in his pro debut, 31 games in low A. I know it sucks hitting out there, but 222, 358, 389 slash line. I mean, 13 bags in 31 games on 16 tries. And that pales in comparison to pretty much everything he did this year in any stretch. So it's amazing to see the way he's able to make a leap this year after being a 5th round pick.
And again, he hit better this year than any year in the Big 12. And even in Scottsdale, 20 games hitting 278. At West Virginia, he hit 222 in 15 games his freshman year. Sophomore year hit 232. Junior year hit 278. The speed was good enough to get him drafted, but there needed to be more that came around. And so much more came around this year than many were expecting.
I think there's even more coming too. So it's exciting to see. And that's a guy that I think definitely will be a part of their future and be involved in some way within the next year or so. Pitching side of things. We got a few. I think it was a little bit harder. I know you agree to kind of identify some pitchers that truly broke out, because I think pitchers that are generally capable of breaking out are already on your radar a little bit more than hitters. But
they all threw 97. You know what I mean? Like every pitcher capable of breaking out has great stuff. And if you have great stuff, we know who you are.
Exactly. And it's a couple guys in here that I think thrive off deception that makes them that true breakout. And then just some other guys that just kind of, they were already known, but just exceeded any expectations. We'll start with those guys. Drew Thorpe, we talked about, as one of the newcomers on the top 100 list. Yes, he was a 2nd round pick, but I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting this kind of year from Drew Thorpe, where, I mean, the Yankees prospect was point blank. I think one of the best pitchers in the minor leagues, like, period. If it weren't for Robbie Snelling, maybe one or two others, I think you can make a really strong Drew Thorpe case for minor league pitcher of the year. And I think what stands out the most and what truly makes him a breakout for me, Jack, is, I felt pretty confident that this guy was going to fill up the strike zone, that, after what he showed at Cal Poly, not going to walk guys, he's going to throw a lot of innings. But I didn't expect him to strike out 182 and 139 in thirds innings. That's what truly makes it a breakout for me. It was never about no one ever talked about Drew Thorpe's stuff. Yes, his changeup's unbelievable, but no one was like, oh, that guy can, he's frontline stuff. Like, it's wipeout stuff. It's a low 90s fastball. It's a changeup that carries him. And no one really gave his breaking balls any respect. Now they do, because the breaking balls were really good this year and the cutter was really good. But I got to say, the strikeouts are probably one of the biggest surprises for me of really any pitcher this year. Almost 200 punchies in a minor league season is crazy.
Yeah, I strive for consistent groundbreaking analysis, especially when it comes to pitching. But my groundbreaking analysis here is, hey, Jack, why was he a breakout? My answer was just going to be strikeouts. Like, you took the words out of my mouth.
No way. Actually, that's funny. Well, I thought you were going to say record. 14.
Oh, record's nice too. Yeah, I liked the record, but strikeouts, kind of same sentiment. I was not expecting this many strikeouts. You could say, hey, you know what, like, this guy was an innings eater and he carved through, Big West opponents, but that can result in a bunch of strikes being thrown. That can result in a bunch of ground balls. And, I think there's an element of randomness. I don't think it's entirely random, but I do think that there is an element of randomness to minor league ERA. I'm not stunned that this guy had a sub-3 ERA because he fills the strike zone with pitches that are hard to barrel up. But the fact that he got all the whiffs that he did, it's like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And this guy, I think the fastball is a bit better than many were expecting it to be. The changeup is somehow better than advertised. And man, he's got a pitch mix that's good enough to get outs at the major league level in 2024. Can
you believe that? And I hope they do it. Like, instead of just trading him for like the next Frankie Montas, can you just let some of your guys throw and see how they do? That would be awesome. What's interesting with Thorpe too is he had really 2 blow-up outings, just full-on blow-up outings. And if you take, I love to play this game, even though
Yeah.
you take out the bad thing he did, he was really good.
He was all good, yeah.
If you take out those 2 blow-up outings, you have a span of 21 starts here where he had a 1.71 ERA.
Yeah.
And it's funny because those 2 blow-up outings didn't come in Double-A. It came in High A. In Double-A, he didn't have any blow-up outings. He had one where he gave up 8 runs at Hickory, and then he had another one where he gave up 6 against Wilmington.
Hickory, that's a long trip from Hudson Valley to Hickory. He probably just slept shitting on the bus. All right, eliminate that one.
I'm cool. So we eliminate that one, but we're keeping the 6 earned runs in against Wilmington.
No, just throw that one out too.
Okay, so we got a 1.71 ERA, 35%
Actually, no.
K rate.
It's Wilmington. It's Wilmington, Delaware, I think.
Yeah.
That's an easy drive. No, we have to include that one.
Shit, that puts it back up to over 206.
I'm sorry.
All right, so not that great of a year. No, but seriously, like Thorpe, man, it was really impressive. The other thing that's underrated about him is he holds runners on really well. And I mean, that matters now in today's game. Like we're seeing it, especially in the playoff stage. He just does all the little things well. This would be a guy that if he is anchoring you're hoping there's 3 starter upside here, but if he's anchoring my 4th spot in the rotation, I'm so comfortable. So you just know he's going to come out there every 5th day. He might get hit every once in a while, but he's going to throw strikes. He's going to hold runners on. He's going to, even if he's not on doing his best, he's going to give you 4 or 5 innings, or maybe 6, even when he's not on. And like, I just love pitchers like that.
If Johnny Brito threw 25 times this year for the Yankees and had an ERA in the low to mid 4s, Yankee fans were going to be very happy with Johnny Brito.
They'd be trying to package him for Dylan Cease. Probably.
That's fine because they see value there.
Yeah, there you go. They saw value in Clint Frazier and Miguel Andujar as well. But no, you do have a great point. Like, I think Yankees fans are going to be very pleased with Thorpe, especially with the frustration that they've had both internally and externally with the arms that have been given an opportunity, which isn't many, and the arms that they've gone out and gotten outside of Garrett Cole. Not been great.
I think what they understand, credit to Yankee fans, can't believe I just said that. They understand that there's immense value in consistency and reliability. And they have that with Cole. Nobody's shitting on Cole anymore. I think that there was a point early in Cole's Yankee tenure where they were like, wait, we paid $300 for this guy?
Yeah.
They understand that guy is towing the rubber 32 times a year for them and will give them an ERA at the very worst in the mid 3s. And there's so much reliability there. But with what they've gone through with Severino, with Frankie Montas, with Carlos Rodon, they're just going to be thankful that someone's taking the ball for them every 5th day. And that's Drew Thorpe.
And he seems, to that point, very durable. And I think he's a guy that's going to be able to knock on wood, eat innings. I hate when I have to call an arm durable and then
it sucks. Like, oh, Paul Skeen's incredibly durable. Yeah, because he hasn't been like pitching in earnest this long.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, though, Thorpe, lower velocity, low effort. I do think that he's the perfect, and I think that's why they gave him 140 innings this year. He's the perfect guy to be able to kind of handle that kind of workload.
Dude, I thought Boz was low effort.
Boz was low effort.
Pitching sucks.
Yeah, but he threw 100. That's the difference. Low effort at 92. Yeah. Guy might be able to
try harder. You try harder and throw 100.
Yeah. No. Well, here you go. You want a little bit more effort here and a little bit more risk. Jacob Mizorowski is our next breakout, and man, I mean, this is an interesting one because 2nd round pick in 2022, definitely on radars. But nobody had him as a top 100 prospect coming into this year. And I know because you get so lost in the last few months of, or last 6, 7, 8 months where you're talking about a guy so frequently, you almost forget where they came from, and which was Crowder College, by the way. And the other side of it is I remember being on a plane really early in the season, maybe like 2 starts in. I'm doing some digging on some of the best starts of the day and doing a little data dive. And I remember hitting you, shooting you a text with some of the data on Mizorowski and saying, dude, what the hell is this? And we were talking about it. And like, we had heard the name and stuff, but, and people had said, oh yeah, triple digits fastball, blah, blah, blah. But nobody really knew what the deal was. Nobody realized that it was that kind of extension, that release point, the fastball jumping from there, the rest of the stuff that's there, the limbs flying everywhere, Slender Man throwing just crazy pitches at you that you can't see. And once I started watching into that, a couple starts in, I realized that there was something there. But there was also the risk of, hey, he might walk 40 guys a start and have no chance. He was able to circumvent that enough. It's still going to be a work in progress. But I think that was the big key here is I think scouts and people in the industry knew that this guy was capable of something around this, but I think a lot of fans and I'd say a lot of writers and people that cover the minor leagues regardless maybe didn't. They knew, you hear, oh, this guy can reach 100 all the time, but you don't hear about the release point, the extension, just how unique the profile is of the fastball, and just how nasty the overall stuff is. And the product of that is 110 punchies and 71 1/3 innings for a guy that really in his first pro season, I'm not counting 1 2/3 innings in Carolina, which by the way, he walked 7 in 1 2/3 innings. He had 2 chances in his pro debut in 2022, walked 7 and hit 1. So I think that's part of the reason why people just were kind of off him. We're not really clocked in. Well, this year, 5 walks per 9 and 14 Ks per 9.
Yeah, he I think I sent you a video too, right after you sent me the data points. Like it was just one of those random videos that popped up on Twitter, and it's the sensation you get from, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. First time you watched Victor Wembanyama highlights on YouTube or Twitter, it's like, what? Like human body's not supposed to do that. And that was kind of Mizorowski's thing, where he was slender man that happened to throw 100 and like pitches would somehow find the corner, and it's like, oh, that's unhittable. You mentioned Crowder College in Neosho, Missouri. 4 big leaguers out of Crowder College. John Barfield, who was drafted in 85, had a negative .4 WAR. Travis Phelps in 96 had a .8 WAR in 8 games. Sam Hilliard was drafted in 2014. And Aaron Ashby was drafted in 2018.
No way.
Yeah, so Hilliard, Ashby, and Jacob
Brewers
Mizorowski.
Pipeline, Crowder College.
This guy came out of absolutely freaking nowhere, huh? Mizorowski.
Yeah, this is a guy I'd love to get on the pod. Not one that we have any leads on yet, but I'm sure we can try to connect with Jacob, because I would love to hear this guy's story. I didn't really think about that till just now, and we're talking about it, and you're like, yeah, this guy came out of nowhere. Like, yeah, I would love to know what it was like before Crowder College. The Mason Miller interview that we did, man, like that was one of my favorite conversations we've had on here, because it's just like a whole world you don't know about. No one really asks you once you're in the big leagues about, maybe for a feature piece here and there, but no, there's no post-game interview where they're asking you about, what it was like when you were applying for internships in between your D3 seasons and found out you were diabetic because you had to pee in a cup. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying Mizorowski is going to have that kind of roller coaster story like Mason Miller, but anybody that goes from high school to JUCO and then has this jump, it's going to have some sort of interesting ride that I would love to hear about. So definitely looking forward to that. And I'm sure a lot of people told Mizorowski, you're not going to be able to be a starter. You're not going to be able to throw enough strikes, this or that. And look, dude, 7 walks in an inning in 2/3, like that gets to the mental, right? Like that can mess you up a little bit.
Especially if you have to sit with it for 5 months.
Yeah, that's it. Like that was your one chance. Sorry, buddy. I can see you next year. And see you next year was great. I mean, I would love to know what that offseason was like, what he worked on and what he found, because again, yes, there is still another step that needs to be made in terms of the command, but this guy's already solidified himself as a big league reliever by being able to just even have this present command, even in any capacity, right? Being able to just find the zone. And he did that this year. I want to hit on a couple keys in terms of the metrics. I know it's a lot of numbers, and for some, it might just sound like a lot of jargon, but we talk about it with Walker Buehler. And actually there's something I talk about on the Just Baseball show. And then also just with my buddy, Mike, again, that Mike Rothenberg is a big resource for me on just learning pitch shapes and, what you're trying to get from pitchers and all that. And both of them said the same thing to a T, which is so funny. You want to get as far away from average or as far away from the dead zone as possible. There's so many different ways to do that, from release point to pitch shape to extension to all of them, right? You want to create this little cocktail that keeps you away from whatever the status quo is. Usually it's 1 or 2 outliers or 1 outlier and a couple other things that are slightly above average. Jacob Mizorowski is all outliers. And that's what's amazing to me. His extension is almost a foot further than the average pitcher. His release height, which is the craziest part because he's 6'7", his release height is actually lower than the average pitcher. So you have extension out closer to home plate and a lower release point. And relative to most players with his release height, which is already a small bucket, the lower the release height, the harder it is to get vertical break, right? Vertical ride, because when you're releasing from a lower point, you're going to get more horizontal than vertical. It's so hard to get that carry. He gets more carry than the average player from that release point. So it's a low release point, it's further extension, and it's more carry. And oh, by the way, it's 100. So it's an outlier in every single capacity, every single facet. You don't really find fastballs like that. And we're not even getting into the sweeper and those things. So I think that was the big thing that was a breakout here too, is he optimized his delivery a little bit and really leaned into the outlier things and didn't, there's probably people in his ear saying, clean it up, do this or do that. And instead he's leaning into being an outlier and slowly finding the zone a little bit more.
Zach Wheeler release height. Do you know it? Can you get it?
I can't believe you brought up Zach Wheeler, because that's the one guy that I think can comparatively have the low release height and the extension. I know the extension's over 7 feet, which is really what makes him special. I want to say the Zach Wheeler release height is what, like 5'3", 5"?
It looks like 5'4".
Oh, I was close.
Although I don't know like the public place to go get release height. I can get extension on Savant. Release height's hard for me to find. But yeah, like I don't know. You say great extension, low release height. I go to Zach Wheeler. I listen. Don't worry.
That is the best. Yeah, that's the best comparison. Now, and this is even funkier. Wheeler gets a little bit more carry, but Mazeroski throws it a little bit harder. I'm trying to get this Wheeler measurable here, but that's what makes his fastball so unbelievably ridiculous. Oh, I was so close. It's 5'4" though. Nice.
I win.
You got it. But yeah, so that's what makes Mazeroski so good. Definitely a breakout from that capacity to already reach AA. Yes, the numbers weren't as good in AA, but to reach that level, really impressive. Made a mockery of high A as a guy straight out of JUCO. Really, really nice stuff from him. You ready to talk about the king? The absolute GOAT?
Yes.
And you know who that is?
Yeah.
Yu-Min Lin.
Bingo. Arizona Diamondbacks.
Floor is yours. This is your king.
Yeah, I need to go on Fanatics or some other retailer and customize a Yu-Min Lin Arizona Diamondbacks jersey. And we're going to steal it and we're going to put it on the justbaseball.com Shopify, and everybody's going to go buy it.
We should try to make some Yu-Min Lin merch. That would go crazy.
I'm in the hive. I am a Yu-Min Lin stan, and Lin defies every logical thought that I have about pitching. He's a tiny dude that was throwing 89 to 91 coming into this year.
Yep.
It has this diabolical fluttering changeup that has so much separation and so much movement. He's the little kid that hops on the mound that all of a sudden he's nasty, and everybody walks back to the dugout like, what's that satanic shit that I just swung and missed at? That's Yu-Min Lin.
What makes it even weirder is, the changeup's bizarre. Like, that's a really hard pitch. It's just nasty. It's a plus pitch. But there's nothing really, the other stuff not really that great. But for whatever, it's one of those where it's like, you go up there, it doesn't look like it's that crazy, but you can't hit it. And to your point, you walk back to the dugout and you're like, why couldn't I hit that? Yeah. And that's what he is. Because when we talk about getting away from the dead zone, all the things I just talked about with Mazeroski, Lin doesn't really do that. Like there's nothing that jumps out. His extension is below average. His release height is average. His velocity is average. His vertical movement, average. Velocity is actually below average. But he disrupts timing. If you watch this guy throw, he'll almost have a different kind of wind up every time, try to throw you off a little bit. He turns in and you can't see the ball, and then he uncorks and whips it around on you. And I think that's a big part of it as well. I'm writing about Mason Black as we're doing the Giants system. That's something that I noticed too. And that's not going to show up as much in the pitch data. Deception, but the good old school deception, right? I'm hiding the ball, I'm inward twisting, and I whip my arm around. That's kind of what Yu-Min Lin does, and he just is disruptive. I also think he's effectively wild, because he does throw enough strikes, but his strike rate on some of his secondaries is not great, but he fills it up when he needs to. He's effectively wild.
There are things that need to improve for him to become a major league pitcher, because
Yes.
this version of Yu-Min Lin can't get out to the major league level.
No, no.
Don't believe that. I don't know if he can get out to the AA or AAA level, but he got outs in single A this year, in low A and high A,
He got some double A
because
outs. He got some double A outs.
he got some AA outs. He makes things just uncomfortable enough
Yeah.
for really solid hitters. I'm worried when he sees really high quality hitters, 1 through 9 in the order. And I know that, AAA is not the big leagues, but you do kind of see that in AAA. Like the 8 hitter, the 9 hitter, they can capitalize on subpar pitching. Lynn, I'm just a little, I don't know. I'm just fascinated by how uncomfortable he makes some good hitters look at this point.
No, I know. And that's just an interesting guy that when we do that DVAC system, I'm excited to talk about him. But, if he can gain a tick or two with the changeup already being there and that feel for the breaking ball, like the breaking balls have flashed, it can all come together. But, it's just an interesting case. I think the reason why he's a breakout is we literally had no reason to really pay attention to him. Hey, he had a good year last year, but like was at the rookie level mostly and a little bit of low A. I think what stands out, 3.86 ERA, but 121 innings, handled a big workload as a 5.9 lefty, punched out 140, and had some starts. I think it was some of the individual starts that we saw. He had some of the most dominant starts of the year, like point blank. So I thought that part of it was really impressive too. So Yu-Min Lin, really impressive year, and he's on the radar, but he's going to have to, I agree, kind of find something or gain another tick to truly be that big league back end of the rotation starter. 2 more guys, 2 that definitely came out of nowhere. One with the Red Sox, who they sorely needed, similar to Lynn, but some more outlier type stuff. Isaac Coffey of the Boston Red Sox. They needed this guy bad. They just needed a pitcher, period. Very bad. And Coffey was awesome this year. 10th round pick in 2022 from Oral Roberts. And I mean, it's interesting because good numbers at Oral Roberts, but mid-major, you're not. I mean, they're a good program. That really undersells them. They're a very, very good program. But a lot of the competition they're playing, maybe not as tough. And his senior season is kind of a step backwards a little bit. Still solid, but a 3.77 ERA. This year, his first pro season between low A or high A and double A. So right away as a 10th round pick. Again, dude, pretty much, I mean, he has slightly better year his junior year of college, but pretty much the best year he's had if you factor in innings and strikeouts and all that good stuff. A 3.37 ERA, 117 and 2/3 innings, 155 punch outs. And most notably, I think at the high A level right away, 60 1/3 innings, a 2.83 ERA. To even be able to handle that double A promotion in his first pro season, after being drafted in the 10th round and all that stuff is pretty remarkable. And talk about a guy with a very unique release point.
Yeah. He found like the right blend of swing and miss stuff. It's, pretty much the best swing and miss campaign he's ever had over a full year. He struck out 155 and 117 and 2/3. It's 11.9 Ks per 9. Summer ball through 12 innings, punched out 16. So, teensy sample size. This was the best strikeout season he's ever had. But he walked 2.5 guys per 9. So he was maybe the best strikeout to walk guy in minor league baseball this year because he was punching out the world and he wasn't walking much of anybody. I think Thorpe is up there too, but Coffey, man, like he was really, really impressive. And this is a guy like, he's old, like he's 23 and he started the year in high A. He was a league average pitcher. You'd never really consider true prospects to be league average when it comes to age, but the Red Sox, we know, even with the hiring of Craig Breslow, they're always in the market for starting pitching help. And this kind of feels like the candidate to start next year in double, maybe climb to triple. And if they do deal with a bunch of injuries and they don't make as much of a splash in free agency as we expect them to, this could be a guy that starts some games in August or September for the Boston Red Sox.
No doubt. And I think he actually could settle in as a reliever. It's a really unique profile because you don't see many starters throwing fully sidearm, and he's pretty much fully sidearm. Fastball's 88, 89, will touch 90, but an in-zone whiff of 25% this year. on an 88, 89 mile an hour fastball just because of the shape. And I think you could optimize a few things with the vertical attack angle and all that good stuff, but really good in zone whiff, good overall whiff, filled up the strike zone with that fastball to 71% clip. Release height, we like to talk about. Release height under 4 feet on the fastball. I mean, that's legitimately just horizontal right over the ground and just whipping that at you. So, you can only throw so hard from that release point, but I think 88, 89 from that release point is tough, and it just dives, it darts. Yeah. And then off of that, you've got this breaking ball that just sweeps across. And think about a breaking ball sweeping across from this far over to the right release point. I think it's like 3 feet horizontally as well. That's a really unique spot to see the ball from. Big whiff on the curveball, 19% swinging strike rate, which is overall whiff, and 40% in zone whiff there. So, I mean, that's crazy stuff. And then he'll snap a changeup off of that. How are you going to differentiate that? It's the same release point, except this one, he just kind of flips it out over and it just dives right off the table. So the changeup was really effective for him too. Fastball opponents at 220, curveball opponents at 200, changeup opponents at 180, cutter opponents were a little bit better. It seems like everyone hits cutters. I don't know why. If you don't have a good cutter, just stop throwing it. Cutter guys hit well. But the point is, I mean, the fastball, curve, and change, those were really good for him. And they all play off of that same funky release point.
So I will say, just mess around and play catch from that slot, and you'll understand why cutters don't necessarily play as well. If you drop down to that like sidearm slot, your fastball can almost move like a subdued sinker. If you throw a sinker type or even a two seam, it's going to have more sinking action, diving action. That's how guys can start to get more swing and miss on their fastball. If you drop the slot down and some of that horizontal run turns into vertical drop. And then you've got like a sweeping slider. You snap that thing off, you're pretty much just frisbeeing that across the zone.
Yeah, it's like the open hand frisbee.
Exactly. You're with your boys on the quad.
I could never rip the forehand frisbee though.
I never ripped it. I was a backhand guy exclusively. But you frisbee that slider across. What is a cutter? It's a slider that slides a lot less. Yeah, and it's a little harder. So then it just kind of like floats on top of the zone. It's not a good pitch from that slot.
No.
But if he can be a sinker, sweeping slider, and a changeup that also dives a ton vertically off the sinker, that's a great 3-pitch mix from that slot.
100%. And I think that's the interesting thing is I don't think he's done getting better. I think there's some optimization that could be had with the arsenal. And Breslow played a big part in the development of the pitching prospects in the Cubs system, the whole pitch lab that they talked about and all that good stuff. Like, the Cubs knew what they were doing there. And I think if the Red Sox can kind of get themselves going in a certain way and with their pitching development, things like that, these are the perfect examples, just optimizing that arsenal, using your release point to your advantage. Some more sink on that fastball would be great. And just tweaking some little things there. I think he could be a legitimate starter, a very unique one, but he could be a solid one for them there. Last guy, Minnesota Twins right-hander, who is very unique as well and had a fantastic year. Corey Lewis, right-hander with the Twins, of course. We got a knuckleballer in here. And it's not predominantly, though. That's the fun thing, is he mixes in a knuckleball. But also, it's not like George Kirby wants a start, or just unveils it all of a sudden. He uses it. It's a weapon. But this guy was awesome. Another underrated West Coast arm that had a strong year. 9th round pick in 2022 out of UC Santa Barbara. And guess what, Jack? Another guy who had a better year as a pro than he had in college. 2.49 ERA this year between low A and high A. 101 innings, struck out 118, walked just 33. Dude is interesting. It's a low 90s fastball, but great shape. Slider, good change, and a knuckleball. Also mixes in a curve. So he's got 5 pitches, but a knuckleball that he'll mix in about 15% of the time. And it's the hardest knuckleball I've ever seen. It's 84 miles an hour.
Jeez.
84.
I've seen 80. I've never seen 84.
And it's
How do you do
knuckle? I don't know.
How hard was Kirby's that he threw?
I thought it was 70 something.
It might have been. It was hard. Kirby's knuckleball was disgusting, but an 84 mile an hour knuckleball, like that thing gets on you. It probably tumbles so quickly at you that you don't even have time to kind of stutter your foot. That's a crazy thing to pallet, an 84-mile-an-hour knuckleball.
84.
I want to know how that's possible.
That's another guy I'd just love to talk to. That thing is topped at 86.
Jesus.
And yeah, it averages obviously no spin. But it's pretty cool to see him doing that. And you just don't see guys mixing in the knuckleball. It's either you're a knuckleballer or you throw one-offs. You don't see a guy mixing it in around 15% of the time.
No.
What's interesting is you also got to worry about a fastball that average. Yes, it's a high release height because he's 6'5" and he's over the top, but you got to worry about a fastball. If you're going to be over the top, have crazy carry, average 21 inches of induced vertical break on his fastball. Jesus. So that's going to play. And then everything kind of works off of that, right? You got to worry about the high carry fastball, which got a ton of chase at the top of the zone. Use that to his advantage big time. Nearly a 40% chase rate on the fastball. Slider was really good for him. It's about consistently locating it, but it was really good for him. Opponents hit well under the Mendoza line against that with good break. Mentioned the changeup. He would leave it up. It got hit at times, but overall was a good pitch for him. And then that knuckleball that opponents hit 200 against, but he also barely gave up any extra base hits. He had 66 at-bats against the knuckleball, 36 strikeouts, 15 hits, only 5 were for extra bases. Perhaps like the most impressive thing is that he actually throws it for a strike relatively consistently, which is very hard to do.
Yeah, seems like it, man. I haven't gotten a good look at Corey Lewis, but I know that he was a guest on the Behind the Seams pod. Yeah. So clearly that guy has some perspective.
Yeah, which I love too. So go check that out. And Lewis, just a very fun pitcher that I'm definitely rooting for. Mixes in that taste-breaking curveball as well. So nothing may jump off the page, but that fastball is going to play above average. All those secondaries look like they could be above average. I think Lewis is a guy that could be one of the more underrated arms in the minors right now, given the stuff, because he didn't get challenged with a Double-A promotion, kind of under the radar in certain ways. But I mean, he had as good of a year as any of the guys we talked about on here, to be honest, besides maybe Drew Thorpe. Yeah. That'll do it for this episode. We're trying to figure out the scheduling side of things. I'll be back home and kind of back to normal a little bit as we start to get back into the swing of things in terms of getting into the structure that we promised you with the top prospect list every week. Of course, we will have the Giants next. Any other fun scheduling notes, Jack, as you're the guy that definitely puts together the calendars really well and is just the organizer of everything?
Under the radar guys in the upper minors is coming up next week. And I think that's fun. And that's kind of a place where if I just read our messages back throughout the season, we can probably cook. Because I see a bunch of guys in AAA that like don't get as much love as I think many should. And some of those guys are relief pitchers. And there are, I don't know, it's kind of like the Cam Newton thing. Remember the Auburn recruitment story with Cam Newton? The Auburn coaches went to Blinn Junior College in Texas to take a gander at this really good wide receiver. And they realized it was the quarterback that was like actually making the receiver good. And that's how
that was similar with like John Morant, right? It was like by accident.
Exactly. It's like going to watch Zion in AAU. And they were like, wait, this point guard's kind of sick.
Crazy enough. I think that happened with Mike Fires at Nova Southeastern University, Division II in Fort Lauderdale.
Were they going to see JD Martinez?
They were going to see JD Martinez, and Fires was throwing 84 and getting outs, and someone was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a flyer on this guy in like the last round. And I always love those stories. So yeah, let's try to do that ourselves.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to try doing with you. It's like, hey, guys in AA and AAA, when we were watching a ton of really solid prospects, maybe there were guys that flew a bit under the radar there that, hey, can absolutely have a big league spot. And Tyler Fitzgerald, I think, is a great example of a guy like that.
I love it. Well, looking forward to that. That one will definitely be for the prospect heads. I know they'll enjoy that, but that'll do it for this episode. Again, we have Giants top prospects coming at you next week as well. Keep an eye out for that, and plenty of off-season coverage when it comes to free agency, 40-man stuff as well. I'll be all over that. And, it's almost Rule 5 season again, which is honestly, I get way too excited for that. But looking forward to that. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you early next week.